One of the most overlooked concepts when it comes to trying to get your ex back is understanding something called expectancy bias. So I've touched on it in some of my videos in the past, but I want to do a deeper dive on it today so you can fully understand it and how much it impacts the reconciliation process. So in today's video, I want to talk about expectancy bias and how it impacts both you and your partner and how breaking through it is going to be key to repairing your relationship. There is a lot of ex-back advice out there telling you about some secret system or strategy or method to win your ex back and live together forever in harmony. Now, as romantic or manipulative as that sounds, depending on your perspective, the reason why an ex won't return to you is actually very simple. It's not overcomplicated. It's not fluffy or systemic. The reason why an ex does not want to return is very, very simple. And this is something called expectancy bias. And before I jump into what expectancy bias is, I want to talk a little bit about responsibility. Now, before you try to skip forward, just hear me out for a second, because I know I talk a lot about this on this channel. But responsibility is really important in repairing a relationship. Understanding your role within the relationship dynamic and how it's had an impact on the relationship is really, really important. It's really important because that is the key to change, the key to changing the relationship moving forward. Now, the reason why I mention this is because with expectancy bias is our brain's habit of interpreting reality through the filter of what it expects rather than what's actually happening. And this is what a lot of people who are trying to repair a relationship have found, is that they've taken responsibility for how they acted in the past. They've started to change, and they found that their partner or ex-partner is still seeing them as their old self. So they're seeing them as what is expected rather than the changes that are made. So when you're trying to reconcile with an ex, this bias can twist every small sign of what you do. This bias can impact both you and it can impact your ex-partner in the way that you both see the potential relationship. Either way, overcoming and breaking through expectancy bias is going to be really, really important in order to repair the relationship. Because when you fall for expectancy bias, you end up reacting to your expectations, not the actual evidence. And that's really important. So I want to talk about how expectancy bias hurts you. So when you're trying to repair a relationship with an ex-partner, when you have this expectancy bias, so you're looking at the past and you're looking at the potential future, and what you're doing is you're seeing all of the negative stuff for yourself. So when you look at all of the negative evidence, when you have the assumption they'll never want me again, they've moved on for good, this is looking at all of the negative evidence as to why your partner won't come back to you. Your partner won't give the relationship another chance, that your partner will never see that you've changed. The relationship will never work. This is your own expectancy bias. And this quietly sabotages every effort that you make to grow or to reconnect. The reason why our brains can fall for it is because it's kind of a comfy place. Because if you think about it this way, if your brain is saying, hey, they'll never come back, it means that you can kind of stop growing. You can kind of stop trying to change. You can try to stop putting in the effort, and you can go to an easier place of I'll just find a new relationship. I'll just find someone who I don't have a history with, who hasn't seen the maybe not so good side of me. I'll find someone fresh who has this fresh idea of me, and that'll be a lot easier. So our brain can often pull in that direction because it's kind of a comfort place of just, okay, here's all the evidence. They're never coming back. I'll just move forward. The first way that it hurts you is that you filter out all of the good evidence. So if your partner shows warmth or curiosity or interest, you can actually brush this off as pity or politeness. You don't let yourself register any progress that you've made within yourself because you've already decided that it's kind of hopeless. They're never going to see it. So your brain kind of tries to protect you from disappointment, but it also blocks you from the potential of the relationship. But it can also impact you in terms of you acting from fear instead of a place of strength. So if you're expecting to be rejected and you're expecting that rejection to be terrible and embarrassing and hurtful, this changes your tone, it changes your energy, it changes your timing on how you put in your growth work or you interact with your ex-partner. You can end up withdrawing, you can end up over-explaining yourself, you can act like you're walking on eggshells, and this energy signals insecurity, so it can actually impact the way that you talk with your ex-partner. But it can also impact you in terms of your staying stuck in the past. So if you're believing the story of they'll never see me differently, you're never going to collect any new evidence to challenge it. You're going to keep replaying the same emotional movie over and over again. So this negative expectancy bias can feel like realism, but it actually ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. It means that ultimately you start to believe that there is no hope for this relationship, which is what your ex-partner's fear is. And you end up confirming that, and you end up just saying, yeah, I agree with you. I'm just going to walk away. And then they're going to think to themselves, I was right. So you end up creating the outcome that you fear the most, that you don't want to happen, right? You create this self-fulfilling prophecy. So it makes you behave in ways that prove your bias right. But this expectancy bias also impacts your ex-partner. So if you think about it this way, if your partner has left you, your partner has walked out, maybe they haven't, maybe you walked out, depending on the breakup, but your partner has built up enough evidence for themselves to say, I don't see the potential in this relationship. I've seen enough evidence that this relationship will not change. I've tried, it hasn't happened. So that is the evidence that I'm basing this decision on. And then they make that decision. And it takes a long time to make that big decision. And then they make it. Think about it this way. Then you start to change. You start to realize that you have acted in a way that you are not proud of and you could have done way better. Expectancy bias is when your partner is still looking at all of the evidence that shows that you can't change, that you don't want to change, that you're not willing to change. So even though the evidence is that you are changing, their brain still stays in that place of, no, I've seen enough evidence of this. It's not going to take a couple of weeks of change to actually change my mind. Like, I'm not that foolish. So expectancy bias means that they can act in ways that kind of prove them right. Subconsciously, again, this isn't conscious, but subconsciously, it can mean that they actually push back harder on you. They temporarily reject you even more because their brain needs to see way more evidence than what it's seeing right now. So during a breakup, expectancy bias is the main challenge that you're going to face. But it's based on the evidence that your ex's brain has produced for itself. It makes sense, right? If you think about it, if there's years of evidence pointing in one direction, a couple of weeks, a couple of months of new evidence is really not going to change a mind. They're going to be looking for the evidence that supports this negative interpretation. And this is really important to know, that this is not your ex-partner being stubborn or mean or nasty or not giving you a chance. It's actually based on a lot of logic, if you think about it. So when you are trying to repair the relationship, your ex is going to be looking for evidence that you are still the same person. So maybe you get snippy, maybe you get judgmental, maybe you raise your voice. They're going to be hyper aware, looking for that evidence that you are the same person. So even if you're changing and you've changed 90%, that 10% is what they're going to be looking at. The 10% that hasn't changed. That's what they're going to be looking at. That's what expectancy bias is. When they find that evidence that confirms all of the other supporting evidence that they have, it tells them, they haven't changed. They're still the same person. They're still going to act in the same way, and I'm going to still feel hurt. So even if you've been doing a lot of deep work, expectancy bias can kind of be the barrier a little bit that hides that growth behind your body language, your tone, and your vibe. So during a breakup, your enemy is not your partner. They are not some person to conquer. They're not some prize to gain. They are not some outcome to achieve. The challenge is expectancy bias, both for yourself and for your partner. You kind of both have the same challenge right now. So that leaves the question, how do we break through expectancy bias? The first step is to make sure that you are building evidence, but build evidence for yourself first. So expectancy bias fades for you when your reality outperforms your expectations. So to make that happen, you need to set yourself a really high standard for what counts as evidence. So rather than trying to read the tea leaves of what your partner or ex-partner is doing, how they're feeling, whether they like you or don't like you, set yourself a higher standard as to what counts as evidence. So this works both ways. One kind message isn't proof that they're going to come back to you, but one tough conversation isn't a complete failure and screwing everything up. Instead, start to ask yourself, have I shown consistent, calm, emotionally mature behavior across a long amount of time and in multiple situations. But also be asking yourself, what can I do in order to tweak that? What can I do to continue to grow? Don't just settle for, I'm doing better. Look for evidence that you have improved, but also look for the gaps for you to be able to fill in. This way, you're still celebrating the wins, but you're not celebrating the wins as mission accomplished. Doing it this way, you're training your brain to see things as they are, not as you fear. The next step is to gather external evidence slowly. Members and I talk a lot about the difference between outcome and process. So outcomes are the result of a really good process. If you think about it, if you are a really skilled chef, you have a really good process to make a cake. A good cake is the outcome. Focusing on the process is what creates the outcome. Let's say your ex interacts with you. Don't measure the success of that interaction by outcome. Measure it by the quality of interaction. Were you calm? Did you listen? Did they feel safe? If yes, then that's evidence that the dynamic is changing rather than the end outcome, if that makes sense. So start collecting these small wins, but it always brings your focus back to the process rather than, did they text me immediately afterwards? Or did they say they love me? Did they send me a kiss emoji? That's all outcomes. Look at your own performance and ask yourself, how was my process? How was my interaction? Was I needy? Did I get angry? Did I invalidate their feelings? It all comes down to being able to analyze the process rather than the outcome. So that is the external evidence. The third step is to let your consistent positive evidence rewire both of your brains. So like we mentioned, your ex has their own expectancy bias about you. Maybe they'll never change, or maybe they'll continue to be needy and push me for answers, whatever it is. You can't talk them out of that bias. You have to show up as the best version of you. The consistency of your actions is the antidote to expectancy bias. Over time, positive evidence shown through your identity rather than you trying to prove something. So rewiring how you interact, not just with your ex-partner, but how you interact with people, how you see the world. Being consistent with that will show through your actions to your partner that this is not about an agenda. This is not about an outcome. This is about a process for you. This is you showing up as the person who you want to be. And only in that way will expectancy bias get broken, because you become undeniable. This is your identity. This is who you are. This is how you interact. And this is a really big shift for a lot of the members now is, this growth process is not about getting your ex back. This is about showing up as the person that you want to be to a very high standard, holding yourself to a higher standard. And that is the major shift when it comes to impacting an ex's point of view, is that when they see that you are this person rather than just performing as this person, it becomes very different. So obviously I can't dig fully into it in a YouTube video because there's only a certain amount of time, but if you want to dig more into this and start your growth journey and maybe potentially work together with me, then join my Relationship Bootcamp, where you're going to learn the same fundamental steps that all my members start with to start turning their relationships around and repairing their relationships. All you have to do is click on the link in the description to grab your spot. This is the major shift, is that once you start showing up as your best self, period, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your friends, just for yourself in your life, are you showing up as the positive influence that you want to be? That is what starts the shift on the way your ex sees you, but also the way that you see yourself, because you start focusing on the process of growth rather than the outcomes of growth. Both of you then start experiencing repeated proof that things feel different. This expectancy bias starts to collapse under the weight of overwhelming evidence that you are this new person, because you're not just talking nice to your ex-partner, you're talking nice to everyone. You're actually talking in a mature way to everyone. You're handling the world in a different way. This is the big shift. If you're trying to repair a relationship with your ex, you have to repair the relationship with yourself first, build the evidence that you're capable of this growth and that you're showing up as your best self. And that is when your ex starts to see you differently, because you're starting to see yourself differently as well. And obviously the process of growth is kind of nebulous. I've actually done a deeper dive video, which I'll link to on the screen, on what type of growth actually has an impact on not only reconciliation, but also yourself, on who you are and how you show up in the world. This is not about going to the gym and sort of looking a little bit better. This is about real growth that changes your entire outcomes in life. Knowing where to focus your growth is going to have the biggest influence as to whether your ex chooses to return to you or not. So I'll leave you with that deeper dive video into understanding personal growth and how it impacts reconciliation, and I will see you over there.